The contemporary individual walks through the social corral driven by a primitive, deeply unexamined terror, the fear of non-existence. To quiet this psychological panic, society has engineered a magnificent secular religion, the cult of the legacy. The mind is carefully trained to believe that if one can simply stamp their name onto a corporate empire, a real estate empire, a historical record, or a digital archive, death will somehow be cheated. The masses spend their lives sacrificing their vital present energy to build monuments, accumulating titles, assets, and followers, entirely convinced that they are securing a place in the theater of eternity. But if one observes this frantic accumulation with cold, clinical detachment, the hallucination dissolves. You are merely building an elaborate monument inside a graveyard that is also sinking into the abyss. Arthur Schopenhauer recognized that the demand to be remembered after death is the supreme vanity of the human ego. The posthumous reputation is a phantom, a non-entity that exists only in the volatile, distracted minds of people who are not yet born. To exhaust the only reality you possess, the current moment, for the sake of what a crowd of future strangers might think of your ghost, is the absolute definition of existential madness. The modern digital world has merely cheapened this illusion, turning the pursuit of immortality into a frantic daily race for pixels, data curation, and permanent visibility. Today, we dismantle the myth of the timeless name, exposing how your expectation of a legacy is the final, most sophisticated leash that herd uses to keep you performing until your heart fails. The individual who lives under the premise that their historical echo matters is a victim of a deep perspective deficit. They assume that the future will care about their triumphs, their sacrifices, and their internal struggles. They fail to notice that the historical ledger is a meat grinder that converts empires into dust and kings into footnotes. The digital vault you are so carefully filling with your content, your thoughts, and your curated legacy is a fragile illusion that requires nothing more than a planetary shift or a systemic power failure to be utterly wiped from reality. True sovereignty does not beg for a place in the memory of a terminal species. It flourishes in the absolute relief of knowing that the slate will be wiped completely clean. To understand the absolute fraud of the legacy myth, the mind must first analyze where this phantom actually resides. A legacy does not exist within the individual. It resides exclusively in the minds of others. And what is the human mind according to Schopenhauer? It is a volatile, chaotic vessel driven entirely by immediate need, petty envy, and transient distraction. To entrust your immortality to the memory of the masses is to build a fortress out of smoke. The crowd that praises a name today will discard it tomorrow for the next amusement. And the generations that follow will look at your monument with the same vacant indifference one reserves for a common stone. The trade is inherently fraudulent. The individual trades their peace, their youth, and their current autonomy to perform for the future. They write books no one will read, construct structures they will never inhabit, and accumulate wealth they will never spend, comforted by the delusion that their name will endure. But once the consciousness ceases to exist, the reputation is completely irrelevant to the dead. Alexander the Great feels absolutely nothing from the textbooks that mention his name, and the anonymous peasant in the dirt enjoys the exact same level of peace. The ghost cannot eat the praise, the corpse cannot wear the crown. Modern culture has created the ultimate trap, the personal brand. Individuals now spend hours every day curating a digital ghost, archiving their faces, their opinions, and their achievements in the databases of massive corporations. They believe they're creating a permanent record of their genius. They fail to see that they are merely data mine slaves, decorating the walls of an electronic cell. The algorithm does not preserve your legacy. It capitalizes on your vanity. The moment your utility to the platform expires, your profile becomes a dormant sequence of code buried beneath billions of newer, louder phantoms. You didn't build an immortal name. You just filled a digital landfill. Let us observe the architecture of historical memory, the physical and digital graveyards of human ambition. Walk through any ancient city or scroll through the oldest archives of the network. You will find thousands of symbols, statues, and text entries representing individuals who were once the titans of their era. They were wealthy, they were feared, they were celebrated. Today, their names evoke absolutely nothing. They have been stripped of their context, reduced to cold pixels or weathered stone that the modern passerby ignores without a second thought. This systemic erosion is the natural state of things. The current of time is a corrosive acid that dissolves all individual distinctions. The system requires your ambition. It needs you to believe that your work matters, so you will continue to build the infrastructure of the corral. By dangling the carrot of the legacy, the social architecture ensures that you will willingly work yourself to death, believing you are constructing a timeless testament to your existence. The corporation, the university, and the state all promise to remember your service. It is a calculated lie. The institution will overwrite your contribution within months of your departure. Your legacy is a temporary post-it note on a machine that never stops moving. Schopenhauer made it clear that the only true value resides in the subjective quality of the present consciousness, not in the objective record of an estate. The billionaire who dies, leaving a legacy of foundations and high-rise towers, is no less dead than the beggar. His consciousness has vanished, and the structures that bear his name are merely capital assets being fought over by greedy heirs and indifferent lawyers. He spent his life as a custodian for a future he would never see, sacrificing his actual existence to become an empty trademark. He became a name and ceased to be a man. There is a devastating psychological tax associated with living for the posthumous payout. The individual who fixes their eyes on how they will be evaluated after they are gone undergoes a permanent alienation from the present. They treat their current days as raw material to be processed into an economic or historical product. They cannot enjoy a solitary morning, a deep thought, or a quiet room because they are constantly evaluating how to convert the moment into a metric for their legacy. This is a profound, automated form of self-mutilation. The psychological toll manifests as a chronic, incurable anxiety, the fear that the monument is not big enough, that the archive is incomplete, that the name will be misunderstood. The individual becomes a politician for their own ghost, constantly defending an image that does not exist. They allow their current relationships to wither and their mental clarity to rot, all to appease an imaginary audience of future critics. They are voluntarily drinking the poison of social expectation, hoping that the future will give them a clean bill of health when they are a corpse. This is the supreme irony of the legacy chaser. They spend their life trying to control the minds of the unborn, entirely blind to the fact that they cannot even control their own internal peace today. They run the entire distance of the track, driven by the whip of vanity, only to find that the finish line opens into a vacuum. The masses they wanted to impress will use their name as a weapon for their own current political disputes, misinterpreting their words and distorting their intent to suit the trivial needs of the day. The legacy is never preserved. It is merely plagiarized by the living. Let us analyze the ultimate scale of this delusion, the myth of human endurance. The individual who seeks a legacy assumes that the human race itself is a permanent entity, a stable audience that will remain across millennia to keep the memory alive. But biology and astronomy reject this poetic arrogance. The human species is a brief, accidental spark in the dark architecture of a dying cosmos. We are a temporary mutation on a minor planet, destined for the same inevitable extinction that claimed every organism before us. When the species perishes, whether by its own structural incompetence or by the cold indifference of cosmic mechanics, what will your legacy reside? Where will the digital archives, the marble statues, and the historical textbooks go? They will be reduced to frozen matter drifting through an empty vacuum. The universe does not keep a record of our vanity. It does not remember the Roman Empire. It does not remember the internet, and it will not remember you. To spend your vital energy trying to leave a mark on a canvas that is currently being burned is the height of intellectual naivety. Even within the narrow framework of human history, the memory is highly selective and entirely corrupted. The history books are written by the survivors, edited by the rulers, and rewritten by the fools. The truth of an individual life is instantly lost at the moment of death. What remains is not the person. It is a caricature, a myth, a piece of propaganda used by the system to train the next generation of runners. To sacrifice your actual living consciousness for the sake of becoming a tool for future social engineering is a trade that only the completely indoctrinated would accept. The sovereign mind refused to participate in a lottery where the prize is a plastic crown. True freedom begins at the exact moment the historical ledger is recognized as a fiction and completely discarded. When the individual looks at the empty horizon of the future and says, "I expect nothing to remain," this realization is not a descent into cold depression. It is the acquisition of an absolute, unshakable sovereignty. When you stop caring about being remembered, the world loses its primary weapon of psychological extortion. You can no longer be coerced by the threat of oblivion because you have embraced oblivion as your natural sanctuary. This is the construction of the sovereign armor. The enlightened individual does not build a legacy. They extract the present. They do not write, create, or think to buy a ticket for the future. They do it to experience the raw majesty of their own critical intellect right now. They treat their insights as private currency, content to let the truth exist within the borders of their own skull. They choose a life of complete historical insignificance and total current autonomy over a life of high public renown and zero internal peace. They have recognized that the highest achievement is to live so deeply in the shadow that the world cannot find a handle to drag your memory into its noisy theater. Stand firm in the clean vacancy of your own mortality. Refuse to let the herd buy your current peace with a promise of a posthumous monument. If the condition for your legacy is the systematic surrender of your present mental clarity, the price is an insult to your intelligence. The sovereign mind treats time as an absolute asset to be consumed entirely by the self, leaving nothing behind for the vultures of history. They operate outside the panic of the cultural race, secure in their own self-sufficiency, completely independent of the historical record. They have discovered that the only real immortality is the power of a mind that has refused to care about forever. The theater of memory is burning down. The archives are returning to dust. The unwritten contract that demanded your present existence in exchange for an immortal name was a structural forgery, designed by a terrified herd to keep the individual chained to the treadmill of production. Let the masses continue to run, building their digital empires and writing their names on sand. You have seen through the mechanism. There is no forever waiting to validate a sacrificed life. There is only the clean, silent walk through the present, and the walk is always better, colder, and truer in the shadow. Do not build a monument for the unborn. Inhabit your own independent strength right now. Reclaim your oblivion, kill the vanities, and refuse to participate in the race of the ghosts. Welcome to the final demolition of your historical illusions. Welcome back to your own independent kingdom. If you have embraced your inevitable oblivion, leave your mark in the comments. Subscribe to protect your sovereignty in the shadow.